level, I have found it to be it is very taxing
Hmm.
to do mindset work on the trainer, on the
Yeah.
host. So I was so grateful when our universes collided because I thought, "Oh my gosh, here's someone that I know, that I like, who I vibe with, that I can send people to and collaborate with who and this is probably the mother hen in me, but I'm so protective, and I'm sure you are too,
Yeah.
about the the relationships that you develop with your members and your peers, and I don't want to send people somewhere where they're gonna have a poor experience, even though that's totally outside my control. But when we met, I was like, "This is someone that I can send my audience to, and someone that I would love to share a stage with, and someone who is taking the mindset and taking very, very good care of it." And you have such a unique way of doing it too.
Yeah.
I love what you do in terms of mindset training because you break it down into real time principles,
Hmm.
like with the illustration of the stick figure, or with there was something else that you did that was like, oh my gosh, I just found my own limit and I thought I was limitless already.
Yeah.
So, how did you go from, I want the audience to learn how you went from the banking industry into mindset. What was that like?
Yeah. So I didn't even know that this personal development industry even existed. And I think there's a lot of people out there that, uh, have a very specific way of living, that this is the way you're supposed to live your life. And so you don't deviate from that course, meaning you get good grades in elementary school to get good grades in junior high school, to get good grades in high school, to be able to go to a good college, to be able to get a career, to be able to get a degree that you're going to need for your career. And then you get your certifications and your degrees to move up in that career, to be able to get raises. And then you buy your homes and you do your things to be able to retire one day, to be able to die. Like, that's the methodology of most people. And for me, I just sorry, there's feedback, so I'm
We're
gonna
gonna
wait
get
until
that
there's no
Instagram up and going.
feedback.
It takes a second to plug in.
Yeah, there we go.
Eh,
You might need to
when you
push it up just a little bit because there's a thing on the back there. There you go.
thank you so much, Richard. You're amazing.
There we go. I love it.
That whole recitation of the timeline of life is so anticlimactic. It's
Yeah.
easy to forget, but why? Why are we doing this? Why is this important? What's the point really in what we're doing? He's working so fast. You're
He
so
is.
amazing, Richard.
He's gonna get it. He's gonna get it done. There we go.
Da da da
There.
da.
I love it. Good. Um, so anyways, that was gonna be my life. I mean, that's I in junior high school, elementary school, we have dreams, we have thoughts, we have ambitions. Um, my dream was to always be a professional athlete, but then I got people telling me like, "You're never gonna make money like being a professional athlete. You're too
What
this, you're
sport?
too
What's
that."
the
Like,
is it football?
it was football until I realized I was too skinny, and then it was basketball until I realized I couldn't jump, and then it was golf. So golf is my jam. I love golf, um, because I can play that the rest of my life. And but then I was also really good at speaking. So I was really good at speaking when I was a kid. I did want to be a public speaker.
How
Uh,
young were you when you realized that?
oh, it was early on. I mean, it was 4 or 5 years old. We call it in Utah the first Sunday. It's open mic Sunday. And
It's so
so in
true.
church, I had the opportunity to go and grab that mic every first Sunday, and I did, from 5 years old to when I was a teenager. And so I just knew that I loved public speaking. I was in debate when I was a kid, so I love the idea of changing people through speech. So I started down the path of getting into public speaking, and then my coaches, my teachers, my counselors, my parents said, "You won't make any money doing that. So go do something you can make money at, and you're really good at math." So I was really good at math. I still am good at math. I can do math in my head pretty easily. I took the highest maths in high school, the highest maths in college,
Mm,
and so I went into banking because I was like, "Well, I
lots
can
of math.
use." There's lots of math in banking, and so I went into banking and found a good career. And there's a lot of people out there that have amazing careers, and I had a great career. It was awesome. I had amazing people that I was with every day. And so I don't ever want to like bag on a career of banking. I just knew that there was something more inside of me, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So every day I'd go to the bank and I would increase in the bank. I mean, I was doing amazing things in the bank. I was, the up and coming executive that was up and coming. I mean, I was doing very well as far as money goes. I had every holiday off, weekends off, off by 5 every day. Didn't have to go until 9 every day. Like the banking is a great career, and I had a phenomenal career. But every day I would walk in and I'd feel this pressure in my chest
Mm-hmm.
that said, "This isn't where you're supposed to be."
How many years did
Oh, it
you do
was
that
a
and have that
decade.
feeling?
It was a
Like
decade.
daily?
Every day I'd walk in, but I didn't know what it was. And so maybe there's some listeners or there's some people out there that are like, I feel you. Like, I'm going to my career, I'm going to my job. I love it, but there's something more inside of me, but I don't know what more is. I don't know what it is. And so I would feel it, but it's like, how do you even access it? How do you even go and talk about this stuff? Like, who can teach you how to access that it when they don't even know who you are?
Yeah, well, and it's this part of your brain that feels but doesn't have linguistics attached to it. So it's
Yeah.
hard to even describe. And the more we try, the more idiotic we sound. And then people laugh at us and you're like, I guess I'll just advance in my career because that must be it.
Yeah,
Right?
and so I just kept growing. I kept growing in my career, and so there came a point where I would be sent around to different workshops, different seminars. I was a regional sales manager, and so there was one seminar that my boss had said, "Hey, I want you to come to this seminar," and it was based off of a book out of Harvard called The Happiness Advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember I walked into that room, and the person on the stage said, "If you change the way you see things, then the things you see will change." And
I've
I
heard
was
you say
super
that.
cynical. I was really cynical. I laughed out loud. Thought that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I was so like not wanting to be there. My arms were folded. I was
Arms,
like,
legs, toes, fingers.
I don't want to be here. And but after a few minutes, I couldn't argue. The person was giving me research and study after study that when you change how you see things from negative or neutral to positive, how things you see will start changing. And I couldn't argue the research. And
The
so at
math
that,
tracked. It spoke to your math brain.
yeah, it spoke to my math brain, it spoke to my logic, and it's like, I can't argue this stuff. And so I fell in love with positive psychology in that moment. I still remember it was that moment I fell in love with positive psychology, power of the mind, and I went all the way in. So I was getting my degree in finance and accounting. I stopped it. I was like 2 semesters away from graduating. I completely
Mm.
stopped it. I changed my whole degree into speech communications
How old were
with
you at this point?
mid-30s.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah,
you're still in school,
so
going
I'm
to work.
I'm doing the slow track, by the way, of school. I never really, I knew that I needed my degree in order to continue to rise up in the banking world. But here's the funny thing is that I was practicing the principles that I teach in the banking world that I didn't even know I was practicing. So I just when I get my mind to something, I get it.
Yeah.
It my sometimes it drives my wife nuts. Sometimes it's for our benefit as in our family. But when I have something in my mind, I get it. And so whenever there was a promotion in my mind, it was like, that's mine. That promotion is mine. Whether it was a branch manager or whether it was a senior leadership position, is like, if I want that position, I'm going to get it. And there was nothing that was going to tell me otherwise. And so there were many times where I would apply for a job that required degrees, and I would get the job over the people that had the degrees.
Even without the degrees.
Even without the degree. I was hiring people that they were way more qualified than I was for the job that I was hiring for.
And did you ever ask yourself why, or was it just so natural you
No,
didn't
it
even
was just
question
natural.
it?
It's like, of course I'm going to get this job. Of course I'm going to get it without a degree. Like, why would I? And so I moved up pretty quickly. And then there came a point where it's like, all right, I'm not going to be able to move anymore unless I have my degree. So that's where it's like, what degree am I going to get? So it was a business finance degree is what I
Mhm.
thought. But then I totally switched it. And I'm like, okay, if I'm going to go to school, I want to go to school for something that I am passionate about. And I'm passionate about speaking and I'm passionate about the mind. Those are the 2 things that I love.
Mhm.
And so I got my bachelor's of arts in speech communication with an emphasis in psychology. And so at that moment I started changing everything. So once I got that degree, I started studying with some of the very best in the world regarding mindset and how the mind works. I worked with John Maxwell for a few years, was mentored by his CEO, Mark Cole, for a few years, who's the next John C. Maxwell. I worked side by side with Bob Proctor for several years, flew to Toronto multiple times, was one of his lead consultants in the world, and just fell in love with this industry. So that's how I got in, and I obviously had to quit the bank, and so we can go into that whole story. But I'm now in this industry for the last 12 years, and have built a worldwide company and teach now all over the world, and it's fun. I love it.
I've been to your events. They're so entertaining and they're so fun to participate in. And I love the way the audience responds to it. I'm sitting here across from someone who's an expert in so many different fields. And whenever I hear someone saying, I have a degree in psychology, or I understand or study psychology, instantly my gut is like, what am I doing that he's reading that I don't know he's reading? Like, what's my body language saying that I don't know? And I psychoanalyze myself.
Yeah, we all do.
I'm like, I do this when I watch that show, Lie to Me.
Uh-huh.
Have you watched that show?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it though.
I wonder your perspectives on it. They had the main character is a body language expert, and they had a real life body language expert come in and counsel on this show to read micro expressions and all of these things. So all the science of the show is real. And now I've subscribed to now I can't remember the doctor's name, to all of these body language and psychoanalyzing things. And I don't know about you, I tend to overread myself. And I use this against myself a lot of times, and I second guess myself. And even just recently, Richard and I were sitting at our date night at Cheesecake Factory, where we go almost every Thursday. And I have this big, hairy, audacious goal that I haven't shared with very many people yet. And I don't know why yet, but maybe you can psychoanalyze me and help me figure it out. But this is a goal that is so big that it both excites me and terrifies me.
That's how you know you've got it.
Right? And that's why I'm excited, because I'm like, it's so scary. And this concept, and it causes me to stutter because I haven't figured out things about it yet, and I don't know where it's going yet. And it's for the first time in a really long time, it's caused me to wonder if I'm capable, because I'm like you in a lot of ways where I'm like, if I want it, I'd just go get it. My vision board, I've trained myself. I don't even use a vision board anymore. Not that I shouldn't. Maybe I probably should. But I got so used to pulling stuff off of it that it was just a fast track to whatever I wanted. And now it's so big that I'm like, I don't know how. And even furthermore, I don't know my own blind spots.
Yeah.
By definition. And that was what I was sitting there like, it almost brings tears to my eyes to think about it, because if I ask the question, do I see my own blind spots? And I say no, because by definition they're blind. Then that next question is, do I possess enough of whatever it takes to get this goal? And the answer to that is, by definition, I don't know. And those three words to me, based on all of my training, are the most dangerous words ever, because I don't know and I need to know. But I can't see myself from anyone else's perspective.
Yeah.
Do you run into this? Are you graduated past that level?
No, we all have artificial boundaries or limits. I see a book over here on your bookshelf called U Squared.
I bought that because of you.
Yeah, it's my favorite book.
Yeah.
I read it on the airplane. Every time I'm on an airplane, I read the book. But there's a section in there that talks about our artificial limits. That we all have these limits in our lives, but they're artificial and they're way beyond what we could possibly ever imagine. As I look at people that are doing incredible things, the Oprahs of the world, or the Elon Musk of the world, or the people that think that they can change the world are the ones that actually do. Mm-hmm. Their limits, they don't have, like, their mental limits are way bigger than yours and mine. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that we don't have that same capacity or that same potential to increase our limits. But it will be, so if you can imagine, we all have like this limit. If there's this circle, we all want to live inside the circle, because that's safe. Mm-hmm. And it's like my brain loves homeostasis. It wants to stay the same. It does not want to get out. And so we live in this circle, this bubble, and all of our dreams and goals and aspirations are way outside here. Mm-hmm. But we live here. And not only do we live here, we live like the closest to the middle that we possibly can.
That's the comfort
which
zone.
Is the safest place in our life. So for when you start to expand this and you start to get out of this, so when banking is one of the most safest jobs you can possibly have on the planet, okay? At least that's what I've thought. And so my life was very safe.
Predictable,
It was very
stable.
predictable. It was very stable. And my brain loves that. But this is one of my favorite quotes that Bob Proctor used to always share with me. He used to say, Tony, there's a spirit inside of you that is always for fuller expansion and greater expression. Meaning this, there's an essence to who you and me are, Marianne, that wants to grow and wants to express and never stop.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this spiritual, and I do believe it is spirit inside of me. It's Tony's spirit that says, heck yes, let's go. I want to grow. I don't want to stay the same. Come on. It's time to get up. Let's go. It's time to move. It's time to create. It's time to build. But then there's the physical part of me that's like, I just want 5 more minutes of sleep. I want to stay safe. I like
It's
my
warm in here.
safety. I like my bed.
Yeah.
And so I struggle with that myself, like getting out and moving this comfort zone, or this familiar zone is what I call it, because I don't believe we're really comfortable
No.
if that spirit inside of us is always wanting to create and grow.
It's that
we're
punch
not
in your
comfortable.
chest that you
Yes.
felt every day at work.
So we've got this bubble. Our goals are way out here. By the way, if your goal is inside the bubble, you're not growing. So when you say like this vision I have, it's this big, hairy, audacious goal, and it's so big that it excites me, it thrills me, but I'm terrified at the same time. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect, because that means it's out here.
Yeah.
Because if it didn't terrify you, it'd be inside the circle. It'd be safe. It'd be logical.
And easy.
And it'd be easy to go get. And so the people who change the world are the ones who are always dreaming and then believing, I can do that. I might not know how to do that,
Clueless.
but I can do that because I believe in my potential. I believe in my connection with God or source or universe or whatever it is for you to believe.
Oh, I'm
for
a
me,
God
it's
person.
God.
Yeah, me too.
I believe in my potential with God, that I can do all things with God. Now there's some lines that, I've crossed in the past where it was like, no, I am God. I have all the power. And that's where it's like, no, I have
I get
access.
slapped so hard whenever I do that.
So I have access to God's power. And that power will give me ideas. It'll give me impressions. It'll give me thoughts. It'll give me hunches that when I'm sitting inside this circle, it'll say, hey, jump out here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that it's good when you're scared. It's like, oh crap, I want to puke. But you wouldn't be getting the thought or the impression or the nudge if it was supposed to keep you safe and in this bubble. And so the things that we're going to do are going to be illogical. They are going to scare us. Because if it wasn't illogical, or if it didn't scare us, it'd be inside of our familiar. And so let's say I do this, which I did. I left the bank.
Mm-hmm.
It was super scary.
And you've got a family relying on you at this
Yes.
point. You've got a wife and
2
kids.
boys.
Yeah.
Like they were super young. How am I going to jump? But I did, and I jumped, and I took this jump, and it scared the daylights out of me, and I puked on the side of the road. I mean,
Like physically?
like pulled my car over and threw up on the side of the road because of this new life that I really wanted, but I didn't know how to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But every step I took just scared the daylights out
But
of
you
me.
bet everything on it.
I did. And I remember the first time I spoke like to a group of people outside of the bank, I got to the venue, and they were my, friends and family, 30 of my closest friends and family. Bob Proctor made me do this. He's like, hey, if you want to do this, you got to start now.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he made me
Thank you, Bob.
create a room. And so I created a room, and I remember I walked in and I beelined it straight to the bathroom, and I threw up because I was so scared. And the whole, like, if you looked at the tapes of that speech, which I still have,
Yeah, yeah.
you'll notice sweat all up and down my suit coat, and I'm sweating, and my face is super red, like bright red. I went flush, like just super
man.
red, because it was unfamiliar.
Yeah, yeah.
But I kept doing it, and I kept doing it, and I kept doing it. So guess what happens to our bubble?
Oh, it expands. We get
It
the reps in.
expands. And then you do the next thing that scares you, and it expands, and it expands, and it expands. And before you know it, you're making income you thought you could never make. You're building speeches you thought you could never give. You're writing books you thought you could never write. All of these things that, because you just keep expanding, your life just keeps getting more and more enriched with people and people like yourself that come into my life. And it's like, wow, like I would have never met you had I had just sat in my banker's chair for the last 15 years. And there's so many other people that I would have never met, impact I would have never made. People that have gone through my programs or have attended to trainings that I've invested in would have never gone
Hmm.
had I had not said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to scare the daylights out of myself. So that whatever that is inside of you, like, you got to go.
I know. I know I have to. And it's funny because this is a muscle that I've flexed before.
Yeah.
We teach this stuff. You know, I teach this stuff, and it's feels easier because gosh, when I teach it to people that I'm working with, you know, it's so easy to tell somebody else to do it, and I've done it myself. And yet, there's this insatiable, like you talked about it earlier, the spirit that's inside of us that just doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop growing, and it's not supposed to, because if we're not growing, we're decaying, we're dying. And
By the way, that's a law of the universe, the
it
law of
really is.
entropy.
It is the law of entropy. Yeah,
Yes.
without work, we fall apart.
Yeah, you're either growing or you're not growing. But you're either growing or decaying, but you're never standing still.
Exactly. It's not static.
Yeah.
It's doing one or the other. This concept, and it almost feels to me it's very humbling, because there's a bit of, I think, with speakers in the world, and I'm sure you've seen this as well. We as speakers and we as stage presenters, there comes a level of self-confidence that is required, even if we're sweating and we're face red. It took something you still got up there, even if you puked in the bathroom beforehand.
And I didn't die.
It turns out, right?
I didn't die.
There's a level that of ego that needs to be checked, at least in my experience. And there's a level of humility that I lacked for a long time that I needed. And that ego was keeping me from growing because of this perception of I've arrived at this point.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't allow myself to ask for help for such a long time, because if I did, that meant I was not credible to my audience, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, you should have this all figured out. You're the one on stage teaching this stuff. So, and this is all in my head, right? They're not saying this, because the more, in fact, I step into humility and asking, actually, it has the opposite effect with the people that are watching. But that has kept me chained for a really long time, is not asking for help because of the should.
Yeah.
I should have this figured out by now, and I don't. And that's hard.
Yeah.
As speakers and as mentors. Have you run into this at all?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This should thing?
So one of my favorite quotes comes from Albert Einstein.
Mm.
And Albert Einstein said, the greatest decision you'll ever make in your lifetime is whether you believe you live in a hostile or a friendly universe. I love that quote because it starts with that quote that was shared from the stage the first time that I went into that workshop of, if you change the way you see things, the things you see will change. And if I combine both of those quotes together, the greatest decision you'll ever make in your lifetime is whether you believe you live in a hostile or friendly universe. And when you change the way you see things, the things you see will change. Here's what I found.
Mm-hmm.
We see life through a lens of either hostile or friendly. And when I see life through a hostile lens, I'm constantly looking at how things are going to hurt me or what's going to hurt me. And it stems from a belief deep down inside that says I'm not enough. And so if I believe I'm not enough, then I'll see the world, because this is the lens,
Mm-hmm.
I'll see the world through a lens of not enough. So there's not enough time, there's not enough love, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough resources, I don't have enough work. So if you have this tape playing in your head that says, there's not enough and I'm not enough, that's a hostile universe lens. And you'll continue to produce not enough. And so what happens is and confidence, by the way, is not on a hostile lens. Arrogance is.
Yes, and they're sisters. They're like,
but one's hostile, one's friendly.
exactly, but
Okay,
they look
so
the same through a lot of
arrogance
lenses.
comes across as, I need you to tell me how cool I am, because deep down inside, I'm a fraud.
Yeah, my bucket's empty. You got to fill it for me.
Deep down inside, I'm not enough.
Yeah.
Deep down inside, I look in the mirror and I say, who are you, Joe Schmo? You know nothing. You are a no one.
Yeah.
Deep down inside, like, that's the feeling that might be felt on a hostile universe lens. And I'm hostile against me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hostile against my potential, and I'm hostile against myself. People are not hostile against other people unless and until they are hostile with themselves
First. Yeah.
first. And so arrogance comes from this idea of not enough. Like, so I have to have the world tell me how awesome I am, because deep down inside, I don't believe it.
Yeah. And there's this facade that we put up.
And the ego kicks in,
Yeah.
and the ego says people are going to think that I'm a fraud, or it's going to be confirmed to me, to them, that I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to ask for help, because if I ask for help, then that'll actually mean that they know that I'm not enough.
Exactly. That's it.
And I can't let people know that
Yeah.
I'm not enough. And so it's this perpetual game that gets played in the head. And you can shift this, by the way. So part of the work that I do is helping people shift this lens from this not enough hostile universe lens to there's always enough and I'm always enough friendly universe lens,
And which there's plenty of evidence for.
which we live in an abundant universe.
Yeah.
There's abundance everywhere. You walk outside, there's an unlimited amount of grass and air and mountains and trees and water. And we look outside, it's like there's just this abundance that we live in, but most people can't see it because they're stuck on this not enough lens.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can shift that and you can change that and you can be over to what I call the right side, which is a friendly universe lens, it doesn't mean that the not enough tape doesn't play. It plays in my head every day. Every day, the tape of you're not enough plays in my head.
Mm. Yeah,
But
I know that tape.
But I get to choose to move myself to this, you know what? I am enough. Can I get better? Of course I can get
Yeah,
better.
there's always room for that.
And I have drive to get better. But this moment, this very second, I'm enough just because I'm breathing. I'm enough because I'm a child of God. I'm enough. And if I know that I'm enough, then I'll see the world through that same lens that says, you know what? There's more than enough time that I can sit and be present with my good friend Marianne. There's more than enough money that I can give to the person down the street. I have more than enough love that I can forgive, because there's more than enough, and I have more than enough. And so that quote by Albert Einstein that says the greatest decision you'll ever make in your lifetime is whether you believe you live in a hostile or a friendly universe, I changed that to the greatest decision I'll ever make in my lifetime is whether I worship a hostile or a friendly God.
Worship is an interesting word. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so
You're paying homage to, in a way.
yeah, to pay homage or respect to, and like there's two lenses that people have about God. God's here to try me and test me and trick me and bully me and hurt me. That's a hostile universe lens. That's a hostile God lens. Versus God's here to bless me. God's bound by laws, and so if I don't know the laws or I'm not observant of those laws, then by default He must give me what I believe. But God, I believe in a friendly God that loves me and wants to help me and cheer me on and wants me to win and wants me to progress and wants me to have all the abundance that's out there, but is bound by laws. And so, just understanding just this one concept. So I'm glad that you brought this up of like, does this happen to you? Like, are you in this? Not, it happens every day. I have tools and processes now that have helped me learn how to get over to, you know what? I'm enough. Even though everyone's screaming at me that I'm not, today, right now, I'm enough.
Yeah. And I
Just
can
'cause I'm
believe that for
breathing.
3 seconds.
I can believe that for 3 seconds.
It reminds me of when we went and watched Twisters. Have you seen that show?
Mhm.
I think it was this movie when he said, it's not that we don't fear the tornado, it's just we saddle up and ride the fear.
Mm.
And that's what I think of when you say that. It's not that the tape doesn't play. It's not that we don't have resistance, because we're meant to.
Yeah.
That's how we get stronger. It's just we saddle it and we control it and we harness it and we put a bridle on it and say, you're going to follow me. I want to dive into, and this is why I love podcasting so much, because I'm sitting here benefiting from all of this. I get to benefit just from your brain and from your brilliance and learn. And then people get to listen and come with me, which is one of the reasons of why we set this whole thing up. But I want to dive into this idea with you of surrender, because I have resisted surrender. And as I psychoanalyze myself, I think the reason that I have resisted surrender, which is a word that Carrie brought up to me recently, Carrie Hill, fantastic lady. And she's really dived into this idea of surrender, which I have resisted because I have not trusted enough.
Mm.
I listened to, thank goodness for Instagram and people that could put out great content on Instagram. I doom scroll some good stuff sometimes. This reel came up recently of a child riding in the car with their parents, and the overarching narration was motherhood is such a selfless thing because your mom does not benefit when you do well, but she wants you to do well for the sake of you. There's nothing in it for her. There's nothing in it for her if you become everything that you want to be, but she wants that so badly for you. And that moment started to change my lens, carve it out in a different way around this idea of surrender. I resisted surrender because of the unknown
Mm-hmm.
of I don't know what God has for me. And whenever I test him, he gives me a trial and it sucks. And so I resist this idea of surrender because of the
Yeah.
perception of the hostility of the unknown. How do you feel about surrender? Is there an element of that? Is there an element of surrendering to the higher good? I'm a student at the feet of you right now.
Yeah. No, I love the word surrender. The way that I would describe surrender, again, it goes to this hostile, friendly universe.
Yeah.
If I believe I live in a hostile universe, what'll happen is my brain loves confirmation bias. That's the way it
Mhm.
works. So with confirmation bias, it says, I want to see the world the way I believe. And so it's all of those times where it's like, see, I told you were right.
Oh yeah.
And so there's things that happen in our life. See, I told you so. I told you you couldn't do
Knew
that.
that was gonna
I knew that
happen.
was going to happen. And it's confirmation bias. It wants to see the world the way that we believe. So if we believe we live in a hostile universe, then our brain is conditioned to look at every single situation of hurt and I told you so. And so when we look at all of the things that are coming at us and we're going to surrender to it, why would I surrender to things that are going to hurt me?
That sounds scary,
Yes, and it is.
right? Like
Okay.
Richard and I spend a lot of time and money going to home defense courses where we learn how to protect our home and do all of these things. And that's not a time to surrender. That's a time to saddle up and fight.
So we have this hostile universe, and why would I surrender to a hostile universe? So
Yeah.
the first key is learning, I need to shift, and I need to see that this universe I live in and this God that I love is not here to hurt me,
Mm.
but here to help me every step of the way. And when I fully trust God, and I trust that everything that's going to be thrown at me is to help me,
Is for me.
it's for me, then I can start to be curious with those things that are coming into my life. Now, what do I say by curious?
Mhm.
Instead of titling a situation in your life good or bad, which most people will do, they'll say, excuse me,
You're good.
I got in a car accident and that was bad.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll title the car accident bad.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we know it's bad? How do we know that the car accident that we just got into saved a little boy that was going to come into the road 5 minutes down the line, that if I wouldn't have gotten in the car accident, I would have hit him?
Oh man.
How do we know that?
There's no way of ever
But there's
knowing.
no way of ever knowing that. So we title things good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the key is to stay out of judgment. So in the good book, which is one of the greatest things that Jesus ever taught, was judge not that ye be not judged.
I've always put that in terms of people, but you're opening up a new window of situations.
Oh yeah, we judge all the time.
Yeah.
We're always in judgment. And the moment you judge something, you're out of curiosity.
Because we think we know.
Because now it's like, no, that was bad.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, well, was it bad? Or could it have been good? What are the blessings that came from this? But we immediately judge it as bad or we judge it as good. And the moment a judgment comes in, it's finite. And then we get more of that into our lives.
Right.
And that's by just laws of energy, frequency, vibration, which I believe this universe is governed by.
Oh, I agree. It's so
Okay.
fun to watch in the lab.
So if I think a thought, I'll feel it. And the moment I feel it, my body will energetically come in alignment with whatever it is that I feel. And then the vibration of my body, like when you say, man, I feel so sick. In essence, what you're saying is, I am noticing, I am consciously aware of the physical vibration that my body is in, which is one of sickness or sadness or excitement or love.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the conscious awareness of the vibration of our physical body. And so if I have a judgment that says that was bad,
Mm-hmm.
now I have all of the thoughts that come with bad. And I have the self-deprecating feelings that would come with bad. And therefore I get the vibration of bad. And it goes out and it brings me what?
More of the same. We need
More bad.
more badness.
Because of confirmation bias and because of 3 laws that I absolutely love, which is the law of the harvest. You'll reap what you sow.
Mm-hmm.
That's Western theology.
Mhm.
Eastern theology is the law of karma, which says that you get what you put out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last law is Newton's third law of motion, which is for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction.
And that's what I lean into because that's the science,
Okay,
right?
so it doesn't matter though. I don't care if you're Eastern, if you're Buddhist. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're atheist. It's the same law described 3 different ways that there's an energy that goes out that's bringing back whatever this is why Jesus says, judge not that ye be not judged. Because the moment I make a judgment, I'm calling back in that judgment into my life.
Mm-hmm. It's not a threat. He's just describing the law.
He's describing the law. It's not a threat. And so this idea of surrender is God is always for my good. And every situation that comes into my life is here to help me. Even though it may not make sense, even though it might cause me to want to throw up, even though it might cause to where like, how could you say that that was good? I'm just saying don't title it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're like, well, no, that was horrendous. What just happened to that little girl or what just happened? It's like, just stop titling it and say, I wonder why. I wonder why that just happened to that little girl. I wonder why that's happened to me. I wonder why this is coming into my life right now. I wonder why I just went bankrupt. I wonder why I just had this house removed. I wonder why my house just burned down. I wonder why. Instead of that was bad
Mm-hmm.
because that just happened and it was bad because it hurt. That's the cause of suffering is our judgments. And so the whole idea of surrender is just to stay in a space of, I wonder why.
Do you think that could be taken too far to being past feeling? To be, let's just say, we're going to label it for a second. The LA fires are very recent. Our brother-in-law is out. I don't think he's back yet, babe. Is Mike back yet from that?
I don't think he's back yet.
He's
no.
a firefighter, and he's got called to California. And there's tragedy that has happened,
Yes.
right? People have lost their homes. They've lost everything. I don't care how rich or poor you are. When you lose your home, that I'm going to go ahead and label it as horrendous, right?
Could be.
It could be. And then imagine for a moment that I did label it as horrendous. And then why did a horrendous thing happen? And that exposes us, doesn't it? When we say, but why? And we get curious, I think there's a caution of which lens are you going to view the answer through?
Yep.
Because if we're going to view the answer from a hostile lens, as you say, well, then whatever answer we are vibrationally attuned to receiving will just succumb to the confirmation bias.
Yes.
So how do we ask why without the label
Now
or the
we're
bias?
human. Like I'm not Jesus. Okay, I'm not Buddha.
Wait, what?
I'm not Muhammad. I haven't achieved a level of consciousness or a level of enlightenment to like I want to become like Jesus, but I'm not Jesus. And so because of that, I am human.
Yeah.
And I will wake up on the left side and I will have judgments and I will get into that was horrendous and I can't believe that happened. My point is, it just happened. And if I live in this hostile universe and I call it horrendous, then it will destroy my week, my month, or my year.
Or your life, if you let that go on long
Or
enough.
my life, if I let it go on. Or if I can just stay in a space of, okay, it happened. And I can feel, and I want to feel. We're human. Feel the sadness. Feel the anger. Feel the outrage. But don't let it control you.
Yeah.
Don't let it destroy you. Just feel it and then say, okay, I wonder why this happened to me right now. I wonder why my house was involved. Or I wonder why my neighbor's house was involved, but mine was not.
Yeah.
I'm fine and my neighbor's not. Like, if we just stay in the space of curiosity and we believe that, like, we live in this beautiful, abundant, friendly universe, I believe, this is believe according to Tony, okay?
Tony chapter 1, verse 3.
There's a law of sacrifice. And the law of sacrifice, according to Tony Child, is anytime something in my life is removed, it is always for something more or better.
I believe this too.
Every
It's
time.
hard to live in sometimes.
It is. Because when it's removed, it's like, no, I attached myself to that. So
Yeah.
I have all the feelings of being attached to that house or those things or that person or that ideal or that circumstance. And when it's removed, it's hard because of my attachment to
There's
it.
a loss.
There's a loss to that. That's
Yeah.
why Dr. Wayne Dyer, he said, I'm attached to nothing that causes suffering. But when we can just say unattached to, okay, it happened. Now what? And believe in a friendly universe and believe in a God that removed it to give me something more or better, then more or better will show up. And it's beautiful and it's amazing and it's law. But if I believe that God is hurting me and that is awful and horrendous, then that belief will now, that judgment will now create all of that cankering and anger inside of my soul, which will bring more to be angry and cankerous about.
I imagine that you have better language for it now than you did when you pulled over after leaving your banking job and you're puking out the window of
Yes.
your car. I want to visit that moment and the feedback that you got from your family, the feedback that you got from your kids of leaping into the unknown. I imagine it was something like leaving a very secure income behind. I imagine that it was probably some tough conversations with your wife that went down. I don't know if she was supportive and said, yes, let's go for it, or
Yeah, I mean, look, here's what I know about women. They love security and safety.
we value it
Yeah,
big
it's
time.
it's a value, and so I understand that with my family. I understand that with my wife, and one of the agreements that my wife and I just made is don't ruin us. You know,
What does that mean? How do we know that
like,
ruined?
Don't like cause us to go into like our home's gone, and just
Yeah.
don't ruin us.
So you had
Don't-
pre-decided what rock bottom was and said, nope.
Well, there was a money figure that I had to go out and earn, that I
Yeah.
had to go out and have in our bank account to make sure that was that cushion that would be there.
Yeah.
So, and she's been super supportive and amazing and loving, and there have been times where we've had to have tough conversations of, hey, I didn't think it was going to be like this. I didn't think you were going to be gone this much, or I didn't think this was going to happen. And so I've had to reassess. I've had to reassess my businesses. I've had to reassess things in my life because my marriage, my family, my God are super important to me. They're at the top of my value systems. So one of the things that I teach people is before you can get a big, hairy, audacious goal, we need to find out first what you value.
This is where the sacrifice comes in.
Because if you're going to go and sacrifice everything that you value in your life, you're going to be miserable going after this big, hairy, audacious goal. And so I had to go through the refiner's fire myself to determine that God and family are first in my life. And so I don't book a whole lot of stuff in the evenings because I want to be home with my family at the dinner table. I
Mhm.
don't travel on weekends very much because I want to be at my son's hockey games and football games and basketball games. I don't do anything on Friday afternoons because I want to go on a date night with my wife and my family. Like, these things matter. I don't do anything on Sundays because that's my day to worship my God. And so these things are important to me. So I built my whole business around that. Now, if it means that I've got to sacrifice money, I will sacrifice money for my values, for the things that I put very first in my life. And so my wife and I have great conversations, and you know, there's still some things that we've got to continue to refine and work on for our family, so that my boys continue to know that Dad's there and loves them, and I'm not an absentee.
Tell me about the fire. Can I lean into that?
Yeah.
You said a hot refiner's fire. I want to know about that fire. What was that like? What was going on?
Yeah. So, in this personal professional development space, there are fine lines that you can cross. And if not careful, it can destroy your faith or your family. And so for me, about 8 years ago, I crossed those lines. One of the beliefs that can come into this kind of new age movement is I am God, you are God, God is in everything, God is me, God is you, God is in that table and that water, God is in everything, and we are God. And I started down that path of like, okay, could I be God? Could God be in me and God be in you and God be in everything?
Which doesn't sound like a bad thing when you say it.
It doesn't
It's like it's a
until
divine
you
thing.
start to take the glory away from God.
Mm-hmm.
That says, no, I create my life. I create my life. I understand these powers of these universe. It's my power. I have the power to manifest it in my life. I have the power. I have the potential and the capacity. It's my power. And that's the subtleness. And
It's
I'm
such
just
a
speaking
fine
for
line.
me. I am just speaking for me. Some people may be able to play with this. I was not able to play with it. And there came a moment in time where my faith, my richness, my foundation, I had in essence put on this altar of sacrifice to say, hey, I want to know what truth is. And for me, being willing, and I put everything on that altar. I mean, I wanted to be a Tibetan monk. Literally, I just wanted to be a monk for the rest of my life.
I can't lie. Part of that sounds really appealing.
Yeah.
Sounds really peaceful.
But
and
what that would
quiet.
mean is that I would not have a family.
Right. You have to abandon that.
And so I was willing to abandon the two things because I had never pre-identified what are the values that I'm never going to compromise. In myself, in my life, I had never gone to my faith and my family like those are my non-negotiables. I had never come to that spot where it's like I'm never going to sacrifice those two things. Now, because of that experience, my faith and my family are way more secure than they ever have been.
But they had to be
So
tested.
I wouldn't go back and change what's happened in my life because it's brought me to a relationship with my Savior Jesus Christ that I would have never had I had not put that relationship on that altar.
Mm.
Because today, like, I do believe in a God and in my Savior Jesus Christ, and I do believe that there is a line you can cross, and I get to use the power of God, but it is not mine.
Mm.
It is His, and glory to Him. And all the things that I'm building, I am co-creating with my God. But I would have never been able to get to that point had I not gone through my refiner's fire of in essence almost losing it all. And because of that, my relationship with my boys and my wife are getting better and better. They're not where I want them to be, but I'm never. This idea of a monk is not in my brain anymore. Although it sounds appealing at times, my love for my family, for my wife and my boys, far outreaches my desire for being a monk. But I had to rediscover those two things, and I had to recommit to those two things, and I had to go through hell to do it.
Man, I want to know what that was like, but that as much as you're willing to share, because I think we all have our own crucible. I think we all have our own version of hell, and say, okay, God, I learned my lesson. That was hot enough. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
And this divine gift of choice that we have, the thing that chooses hostile versus friendly, the same choice that chooses the lens that we look through, the same choice that decides what a circumstance means, is the same choice that says, okay, listen, this was hot enough, and I know you're trying to teach me something, and I want to learn it with the cheapest tuition possible, please.
Yeah.
But I know that I have to keep paying tuition until I learn the lesson. Because if I learn the wrong lesson, then I have to retake the class. I'm curious. I'm feeling some emotions. Because, like all people, I want so desperately to succeed. And I have a picture of what that looks like. But in this concept of surrender, I have to take this picture that I painted and say, God, what do you think? Do you have a bigger picture for me? And what am I willing to sacrifice to do what you want? And I can only ask that question.
Yeah.
Trust that what he wants is better.
But here's what I found, Marianne. Thank you for sharing that. And I just took a cough drop, so hopefully I'm not coughing more. Here's what I know. Now, after having gone through my refiner's fire, having come to the spot that I'm in now, God wants what's absolutely best for me. Always. It is always for more and greater. Always. It is never to punch me or get me down. It is to always build something bigger. Now, sometimes something needs to be taken down to build something bigger.
Yep.
And for me, I felt that I had to be stripped down to build something more, to build something bigger, to build something more empathetic, to build something more loving. I mean, I see people now through a lens that I never would have seen them through.
I've seen your lens. It's beautiful. I love the way you interface with people.
So there's no judgment.
Yeah.
I have no judgment with people. Wherever they're at in their faith journey with God, it doesn't matter to me. My job is to love them, not judge them.
Yeah.
Because I felt the other end of that, of being constantly judged for my faith journey with God. It's between me and him. And I'm grateful and I'm blessed for where I'm at today. But my point in sharing all of this is that God wants what's absolutely very best for us. So I've developed what's called the 5 W's to God's will.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll share 3 of them. The other 2 are pretty controversial, so I'm not going to go into those.
Ooh, those are the juicy ones.
Those are the juicy ones, right? But the first 3, it makes perfect sense. And so I've studied God's will for 7 years. Because people will blame God. Like, you'll hear people say, well, God willing.
Oh, yeah, and I've
God-
kind of
God
got
willing.
a tummy ache when I hear that.
Yeah, God willing, I'll get it. It's
That
like,
just tells me that we're out of alignment.
well, what that says is that God is in charge of my life, that I am completely choiceless.
Yes, and that's
I
the
am
danger.
completely agentless here. I have no choice in the matter. God willing, I'll get it means I have no choice. Okay? Or must not have been God's will. Like when I don't get something, when something doesn't happen, it must not have been God's will. And so we blame God in our lives when things happen or don't happen instead of taking accountability ourselves. Saying, what if I'm in this co-creative relationship with God and that my will can be his will and his will can be my will and we can work together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's always for more and always for greater in my life, always. I'm the one that usually throttles back down, not God.
Yeah, he doesn't have limits. We do.
We have the limits. He wants us to be limitless. He wants us to go after 10x in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
He wants us to live in abundance. It's us that says, no. I am only worth. I can only do. I can only have. So the first W to God's will is what? And it's what do you want? What desirest thou is something I hear in the scriptures all the time. What desirest thou? What do you want? And God truly wants to know what we want.
Without this without an agenda. He
without
asks
an agenda
agendaless.
and without limits. So this big, hairy, audacious goal, God wants to know, what is that? What do you want to create with me? I will co-create a beautiful life with you, but God wants you to determine the what's.
It's because he gave us the choice.
And we sit here and we're like, no. I got to guess at God's what's.
It's like the IRS. So I have to guess at my taxes.
I got to guess at my taxes. I got to guess at God's will. And I'm going to sit here and guess and guess and guess. And if it doesn't work, then I'm going to blame God. If it does work, I'm going to blame God. So either way, I'm going to just not take any responsibility for my life. When God is saying, no, you get to choose the what's of your life. And by the way, this is going to sound really callous. God doesn't care about the what's. I want $1 million. Awesome. I want to have my home paid off. Fantastic.
He's like, that's it?
I want to own an island in Africa. That's great. The second W is way more important than the first W. And this is the one that God cares about, way more than the first W. And that is, why do you want that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, God does not care about what you want. You can want the new home or the $1 million in your bank account or freedom or first class, 5-star, doesn't matter. God wants you to have those things.
Mm-hmm.
What he's saying is, why do you want that? And if it's this left side egocentric, I got to have it to because I don't feel this inside, that's the wrong why. And that why will destroy.
Mm-hmm.
God's not going to not give you what you want. It's just going to use it, and it actually destroys people.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen the reverse effect that you accomplish it and you achieve it and then it's gone.
So the why is super simple. And for me, the why as a Christian is this thing that I want, is it going to cause people to believe in Christ? And am I going to be able to do good with it? As long as those two things are there, I know it's of God. I know it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to cause people to believe in Christ? And is it good? Is it going to be good? Is it going to do good? Is it going to be a powerful impact in the lives of others? If those two answers are yes, I'm in. And I know God's got my back at that point. Now, here's where we get totally messed up. Here's what I want. Here's why I want it, which is good. And then the third W is the way. And this is where we get really screwed up with God, because it's like, here's what I want, here's why I want it, and here's the way that I want it. And that's not the way this universe works. That's not the way God works. In Isaiah, it says very clearly, my ways are not your ways, neither my thoughts your thoughts. My ways are higher than your ways, my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Meaning there's my way and then there's his way.
Mm-hmm.
There's my thoughts and then there's his thoughts. So the biggest key about ego and surrender and all of these things is to get clear on what you want, have a beautiful why behind it,
Mm-hmm.
and then get out of your own way. Get out of the way.
And that's where I find I struggle the most because I don't know where I'm in my way yet.
Yeah.
And that's the learning
And
process.
there's limits,
That's the whole thing.
and there's dialogue, and there's a bunch of things that we get in our own way where God's like, hey, I could give this to you, but you think it's your way. So you try your way and you keep trying your way. And when you're done with your way, I'll try it my way. And his way, by the way, will be illogical and scare you.
Uh-huh. My 2-year-old does that with us all the time. I feel like such a 2-year-old when I insist on my way, you know?
Yeah.
The way he wears his pajamas with one sleeve out, it's not going to be the way I'm that way.
So there's our way of doing business, or there's a higher way of doing business. There's your way of building your podcast, or there's a higher way that could get to billions of people.
Mm-hmm.
There's your way of building your speaking trainings and your speaking coaching, or there's a higher way. And it's consistently tapping into, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing. Teach me.
Mm-hmm.
Getting yourself quiet enough. And so every morning I'll get into my office and I'll write down 3 intuitive actions I'm going to take this day. And they're not things that are like your normal, we'll go to the grocery store or call 10 people, or I will quiet my mind and I'll say, all right, God, what's something you want me to do today that is way out in left field?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get a thought. Call so-and-so. I haven't talked to them in 20 years. Why would I call them? Call them. Write a letter, a handwritten letter to this person. Why would I write it? I could just text them. Write a hand letter. Like, so there's these weird ideas that you'll get that it's like, why would I do that? And it's those little ideas that are illogical,
Mm-hmm.
don't make any sense, that is the higher way. It's the easier way. When you're arguing with yourself, that's how you know it's the easier way, because you wouldn't be arguing with it.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I do that? I haven't talked to that person in 20 years. Go talk to them.
Yeah, it's that name and principle, right?
Yeah.
Go wash in the dirty river.
Yes.
Why should I do that? I'm big and powerful and a king. I don't want to do that.
That's it. Why would I go into the dirtiest river on the planet and to dunk myself 7 times? Why would I do that? That's the way.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make sense. It is dirty. Like, we have to look at the way as like, that makes no sense. I mean, you look at any miracle in the Bible, any of them, none of them made sense.
Because
None of 'em.
we imposed our way on it.
So if I'm looking for miracles in my life, I have to understand none of them are going to make sense to me logically.
When do I get to know the 2 other W's?
We'll talk. We'll talk
Okay.
about it.
Okay,
I can tell you them. I'm just not going to dive into them. So the 4th W is when, and the 5th W is who. And so those are the 2 that I dive into.
Okay, we're gonna have to jam on those.
Yeah, we'll jam on those.
Okay. I know that I have been blessed by you being on the show today. And maybe that's a selfish agenda, but I'm also sharing it with other people. So I hope that you've been blessed as you've been listening as well. And if you're here with us live on Instagram, I hope you've been blessed. And I want everyone, you're such a valuable relationship to me and a secret treasure, not secret, just a treasure that I hold in my heart. The way you do life and the way you do business is something that I want to share with the people that I love. So this is why I wanted to have you on the show today, so that I
Thank
can do
you.
it as powerfully as I know how, and then let God take care of the rest, right?
Yeah.
I hope maybe we can do a part 2. And I want everyone, I know that you have an event coming up on the 30th. If
We
you're
do.
listening to this, get to Utah, go to Tony's event, because again, he's one of my secret weapons that I like to share with the world. If you want to be successful, and you need to be in Tony's airspace.
Yeah, so the event we're going to run next Thursday, is January 30th, is an event that I created 2 months ago called The Spark. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was one of those God moments that said, you need to teach people how to listen to themselves and how to listen to that thing inside that you were listening to for 15 years, but you never knew how to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
You need to create an event that will teach people how to find that pressure in their chest and actually go do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I call that the spark, that we all have a spark inside of us that's trying to get out. And so we're just going to spend a day discovering it and diving into it. That's the spark. It's one day.
Well, if you're listening to this and this date hasn't happened yet, I encourage you to go. And then where do people, if let's just say that when you listen to this, it's after the 30th of January of this year, where can people find more of you?
Yeah, so if you go to our website, keepelevated.com, right in the middle of the page, you're going to be able to get a free abundance journal. It's an amazing journal that we put together, me and my team, that will just take you through, how am I seeing life? How am I seeing my money? How am I seeing my relationships? And it's just a 30-day journal that you'll be able to journal on some things and be like, wow, I am totally in this hostile universe. So it's a free journal. There's no payment. So you just go to the middle of our page, click on get my free journal, download my free journal. We just need your name and your email address, I believe. And then that will keep you into our newsletter, where you get all of our events that are coming up, things that are happening. We run the Spark event all the time. So if you're listening to this after the fact, or if you're not able to make it, we'll be able to have you come at another time. So
Awesome. Good. I love that you're good, the good that you're putting in the world, Tony.
thank you.
Thank you for spreading
Likewise.
it. I appreciate you. Friends, we'll put those links in the show notes. So wherever and whenever you're listening to this, those will be available to you. I encourage you to go find Tony on social media, go to his website, go give him a follow. He's doing some incredible things for good people on this planet. I'm grateful to be part of your world, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne.
All right, friends, that's it for this episode of the Marianne Hickman Show. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.
All right, so that recording is going to be done, and then we've got our friends on Instagram. Richard usually and YouTube. Yeah, we're YouTube, LinkedIn,
we're on
Instagram,
everything.
Twitch.
Wow.
We're omnipresent right now.
I love it.
Do you want to check for comments real quick and see if we have any questions that we can answer? Whoops.
Someone just